Hi everyone and welcome to the end of the written words. Yesterday I was taking a break at work because I was trying to de-stress and I watched a video by Seji at the Artisan Geek, and it was talking about intentional reading, and I was like, oh, so that's what I've been trying to do. That's how you call it. So I really loved her video, and also I love her channel. I would highly recommend you check that out. I think she has a lot to bring to the table. But also I had a few things that I wanted to add to that video, so I decided to make my own video in response to hers. A couple of things about intentional reading and why we want to read diverse books specifically. I have had this thought, and I have heard it around as well, that, oh, I don't know the background of the authors that I read or of the media that I consume. I just consume whatever I like. The books that I tend to come across and buy are just the ones that I see on secondhand shops, and the ones that people recommend to me in real life mainly. And so I know that if I only read those books without intentionally seeking diverse books, I'm only going to be reading books by British authors and North American authors. That's definitely not what I want to do. And I want to expand my reading to be diverse culturally. But I think, regardless of what kind of diversity you want to bring to your reading or to your consuming media in general, I think the things that I'm going to talk about still apply. So stay tuned. A second thing I wanted to point out to start with is that sometimes people want to read diverse books or books that are not written by white middle-aged men, because they want to see themselves reflected in books, and I think that's very important. But on the flip side, I think that reading books that in appearance have nothing to do with you is also important, because one, it helps you grow as a person and understand other people with other backgrounds to yours. But also, sometimes the feelings that we have in a situation or the way that we react to a situation can be very similar to some other human 500 years ago in a completely different struggle, right? So I think it's also interesting to find these connections. So I have 4 points today of how you can find diverse books, whatever diversity you're looking for. My first one is pretty obvious, but it is one that I find I don't personally think of when I'm thinking of getting my next read. And that's just using your search engines, okay? So literally Googling or searching on YouTube or whatever other search engines you might use. If you put in there what you are seeking in your next book, or if you just want diverse books in general, you have someone that's made content regarding that. There's so many creators around, and also not only are they going to recommend you some books, but they might also tell you about the background of the book. So if you are looking for something really specific, say, I want to read something set in Colombia, but I really only like historical fiction, that is also being done. I'm going to link some videos in the description about things that I found, but those are really general. It's just a test that I did for finding books from India and books, easy classics as well. Second one, finding books written in languages that you know, but from countries that you don't know, or reading books translated. I am lucky enough to speak some languages that, thanks to colonialism, they are spoken in lots of places around the world. So, for example, for French, I can read something that was originally written in French but set in North Africa by a North African author. Or with Spanish, I can read books from Latin American authors. But hopefully, if you're listening to this, you speak English. So you can read something written in English and set in Hong Kong. I got to read Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress by Dai Sijie. He's Chinese and he originally wrote it in French, so that was really cool because I got to experience the culture that's very different from mine. It's a book set during Mao's regime, and these two boys are considered intellectuals or from middle class, and they are taken to rural China to be re-educated in the ways of popular people. And it's really interesting. It also talks about books that were illegal at the time. And obviously, there's also the little Chinese seamstress that brings a lot of magic to the story as well. On the other side, there's a lot of fiction that has been translated, or non-fiction for that matter. Maybe not as much as there should be, but there are lots of things out there. And this is one of the reasons that I did this channel in English, in order to kind of bring Spanish and Catalan literature into English speakers that might not have heard of it. So hopefully that plays out well. Third point, so Seji mentioned that a good way to get into a lot of authors without putting a lot of effort, I guess, is to read anthologies or short story collections. And just to add to that, I feel like a very good way to start as well is to read children's literature or fairy tales. Last year, I read Angela Carter's Book of Fairy Tales, a short story collection of fairy tales set from all places around the world, all sorts of places around the world. And some of my favorite, I have here a little list, where The Promise, which is Burmese, The Wise Little Girl, Russian, The Boy Who Had Never Seen Women, African American, and The Little Trickle, Surinamese. And here is a quote from Angela Carter that I really loved, is, "A fairy tale is a story where one king goes to another king to borrow a cup of sugar." And my fourth point of the day, which was also touched on by Seji, is to diversify within Western literature. I know myself that even though I've read things from lots of places, I tend to get exposed to British and North American authors, as I said before. And but I know that at least in Europe, there's a lot of cultural diversity, and that a lot of those authors might be absolutely amazing, and they don't get the exposure that they deserve, in my opinion. I do have one recommendation for you today. It's a book that I read about 15 years ago, but I've been thinking a lot about it, and I think I will reread it very soon. And that's Typescript of the Second Origin by Manuel de Pedrolo. It's a Catalan author, and the book is about a boy and a girl that survive the obliteration of the human race by an alien species. So it is a very strange theme for a classic, semi-classic, and it's, from what I remember, is really well written and is deceptively easy in its language as well. But I feel like it has a lot of layers, and I would love to reread it. If you've read it, let me know what you thought about it. And that's all I have today. I hope you enjoyed this. I will be giving recommendations in the future. And thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.